Listen up. You've been playing it safe your entire life, and you're about to pay the ultimate price. While you've been sitting in your comfort zone making excuses, 93% of American employees are trapped in unfulfilling careers right now. That's not just a number. That's nearly everyone around you living a life they don't want. But here's what's really terrifying. Most people know they're stuck and still do nothing about it. They wake up every single day in jobs that drain their soul, convincing themselves that someday they'll find the courage to change. That's not just time wasted, that's your life disappearing while you tell yourself tomorrow you'll be brave enough to take action. The brutal reality check. You think you're different, but you're not. You wake up every morning telling yourself, today will be the day you finally make a change. Today you'll start that business. Today you'll have that difficult conversation. Today you'll take the risk that could transform everything. But then you check your phone, get distracted by meaningless tasks, and before you know it, another day disappears into the void of your excuses. Sound familiar? That's because research shows that 20 to 25% of adults are chronic procrastinators, and this procrastination directly correlates with career misalignment and missed opportunities. Here's what's really happening while you scroll through social media pretending to research your next move. Recent data shows that 67% of working adults describe their current job as completely misaligned with their values and goals. Yet only 12% have taken concrete steps toward changing their situation in the past year. The math is brutal. For every 10 people who complain about their circumstances, 9 of them do absolutely nothing about it except complain more. You research, you make lists, watch motivational videos, you tell people about your big plans at dinner parties. But studies reveal that people who spend more than 30 days planning major life changes without taking action have only a 3% chance of ever following through. 3%. Your extensive planning isn't preparation, it's procrastination, dressed up in productive clothing. Let's talk about your daily routine, because that's where the real truth lives. You wake up with good intentions, but within the first hour you've already chosen comfort over growth at least 5 times. You hit snooze instead of getting up early to work on your goals. You check social media instead of reading something that could advance your knowledge. You eat the same breakfast, take the same route to work, and settle into the same patterns that have kept you exactly where you are for months or years. New research tracking daily decision patterns shows that the average person makes 37 micro-choices every day that prioritize immediate comfort over long-term progress. 37 opportunities to move forward and 37 times choosing to stay put. These aren't big, dramatic moments. They're the small, seemingly insignificant decisions that compound into a life of mediocrity. Your brain has convinced you that you're being responsible by avoiding risk. You tell yourself you're being smart by waiting for the right moment, the perfect plan, the ideal circumstances. But 2025 psychological studies reveal something terrifying about this mindset. People who consistently choose safety over growth experience measurable decreases in confidence, creativity, and problem-solving ability within just 6 months. Your brain literally becomes less capable the longer you avoid challenges. You've also mastered the art of comparison shopping your own life. You look at successful people and immediately start listing all the reasons why their path won't work for you. They had better connections. They started younger. They had more money. They were luckier. Recent analysis of success stories shows that 84% of breakthrough achievements came from people who had significant disadvantages compared to their peers. The difference wasn't their circumstances. It was their refusal to use those circumstances as excuses. Here's the part that's going to hurt. You already know exactly what you need to do. The information isn't missing. The resources aren't unavailable. The opportunity isn't absent. What's missing is your willingness to be uncomfortable long enough to create change. Studies tracking decision-making patterns show that people spend an average of 276 hours researching decisions they could make in 30 minutes if they were honest about what they already know. Your friends and family have stopped asking about your plans because they've heard it all before. They've watched you get excited about ideas, make big announcements, then quietly abandon everything when the initial enthusiasm wears off. You've trained the people closest to you not to believe in your commitments, because you've proven repeatedly that your words don't match your actions. The most devastating part is how you've learned to live with disappointment in yourself. Each time you fail to follow through, you lower your expectations just a little bit more. What used to feel like settling now feels normal. What used to feel like giving up now feels like being realistic. You've slowly adjusted to a life that's smaller than what you once believed possible. Current behavioral research shows that people who repeatedly fail to act on important decisions develop what psychologists call learned helplessness toward their own potential. Your brain starts believing that you're simply not the type of person who takes action, creates change, or achieves significant goals. This isn't a character flaw. It's a predictable psychological response to a pattern of inaction. But here's what's really happening while you stay stuck in analysis paralysis. Every day you delay is a day someone else moves ahead. Every week you spend planning is a week someone else spends building. Every month you hesitate is a month someone else uses to gain ground. You'll never recover. The competitive landscape doesn't pause for your comfort zone. You've become comfortable with being uncomfortable with your life. That restless feeling, that nagging sense that you're capable of more, that persistent voice telling you that you're wasting your potential. You've learned to live with all of it. You've made peace with permanent dissatisfaction because making peace was easier than making changes. The brutal truth is that most people are sleepwalking through their lives while convincing themselves they're actively planning for success. They mistake motion for progress, busy work for meaningful work, and someday thinking for strategic planning. They live in a perpetual state of getting ready to get ready, always preparing for a moment of action that never comes. And what you don't realize is that every day you choose to stay where you are, you're not just maintaining the status quo, you're actually moving backward. What feels like standing still is actually regression in disguise. The comfort zone prison. Your comfort zone feels like safety, but it's actually the most dangerous place you can be. What you call security is just slow-motion self-destruction disguised as stability. Every day you choose familiar over challenging, you're not protecting yourself. You're systematically dismantling your ability to handle anything meaningful that might come your way. Psychology studies show that after age 35, neuroplasticity begins declining when we don't actively challenge ourselves with new experiences. Your brain's ability to form new connections and adapt to change literally diminishes when you consistently avoid anything that pushes your boundaries. This isn't just theory, it's measurable biological reality happening inside your head right now. But here's where it gets worse. Recent longitudinal studies tracking comfort zone behavior over 5-year periods show that comfort zones don't stay the same size. When you're not expanding them, they shrink. What felt manageable last year starts feeling overwhelming this year. What seemed like reasonable challenges 2 years ago now feel impossible. Your comfort zone is like a muscle that atrophies when you don't exercise it. The difference is that most people don't realize their capability is disappearing until they desperately need it. Employee engagement data reveals the hidden epidemic destroying workplaces across the country. While turnover rates appear stable on the surface, engagement levels have dropped to an 11-year low. People are staying in their jobs but checking out mentally and emotionally. They're physically present but psychologically absent, going through the motions while their potential rots from neglect. This isn't just about job satisfaction. It's about what happens to human beings when they accept situations that require nothing of them. The research on staying in unfulfilling jobs exposes costs that most people never calculate until it's too late. Studies show that remaining in work that doesn't challenge or fulfill you leads to decreased mental health, stunted career growth, and significantly lower lifetime earnings. But the psychological damage runs deeper than money. When you spend 40 hours a week doing something that requires less than your full capability, you train yourself to accept less than your full potential in every area of life. What makes the comfort zone particularly insidious is how each safe choice makes the next safe choice feel more reasonable. Each avoided challenge makes future challenges seem more intimidating, and each day of settling creates unstoppable momentum toward a life of permanent mediocrity. People who consistently choose security over growth develop what researchers call learned helplessness toward their own potential. Your brain starts believing you're simply not the type of person who takes risks or creates change. Age makes the comfort zone problem exponentially worse. Data shows that comfort zones shrink predictably with each decade of life when people don't actively work to expand them. What a 30-year-old considers within their capability becomes terrifying to the same person at 40 if they've spent 10 years avoiding anything difficult. The window of what feels possible gets smaller and smaller until basic life changes feel impossibly overwhelming. Research tracking life satisfaction across different comfort zone sizes reveals a direct inverse relationship. The smaller your comfort zone, the lower your reported happiness, fulfillment, and sense of purpose. People with the most restricted comfort zones report feeling trapped, hopeless, and frustrated with their lives, even when their external circumstances appear stable and secure. They have everything they thought they wanted, but nothing they actually need to feel alive. The hidden costs of playing it safe show up in ways most people never connect to their comfort zone choices. Current studies link chronic comfort zone living to increased rates of depression, anxiety, and what psychologists call existential emptiness. When you spend years avoiding anything that might challenge or change you, you lose your sense of agency and purpose. You start feeling like life is happening to you rather than being created by you. Safe choices create their own dangerous momentum. Each time you choose the familiar path, you make it harder to choose the challenging path next time. Your tolerance for discomfort decreases, while your need for certainty increases. What starts as reasonable caution becomes paralyzing risk aversion. Recent psychological research shows that people who spend more than 2 years in highly predictable routines develop measurable increases in anxiety when faced with even minor changes or uncertainties. The correlation between comfort zone size and actual capability is devastating to understand. Studies measuring problem-solving ability across different groups show that people who regularly challenge themselves maintain and improve their cognitive flexibility, while those who avoid challenges show steady decline. It's not just that comfortable people can't handle big challenges. They increasingly struggle with normal life problems that they could have easily managed years earlier. What feels like security is actually the most precarious position imaginable. When your entire life depends on things staying exactly the same, you become completely vulnerable to any change beyond your control. Economic shifts, industry changes, relationship dynamics, health issues, any disruption becomes catastrophic when you've lost the ability to adapt and respond. You've traded short-term comfort for long-term helplessness. The workplace research reveals how comfort zone living destroys not just individual potential, but entire organizational cultures. Teams with members who consistently avoid challenges show decreased innovation, lower problem-solving effectiveness, and reduced ability to adapt to market changes. The cost isn't just personal, it's professional, relational, and societal. When people stop pushing themselves, everything around them stagnates. The psychological profile of chronic comfort zone dwellers reveals a predictable pattern of declining confidence that feeds on itself. As their actual capabilities diminish from lack of use, their confidence in their ability to handle challenges drops even faster. This creates a spiral where reduced confidence leads to more comfort-seeking behavior, which leads to further capability loss, which leads to even less confidence. Current research tracking life outcomes over 20-year periods shows that people who consistently prioritize comfort over growth report the highest levels of regret in later life. They don't regret the things they tried and failed at. They regret all the things they never attempted because they felt too scary or uncertain. The pain of staying safe becomes far greater than any pain they might have experienced from taking risks. While you're trapped in this prison of your own making, paralyzed by the need for certainty and safety, the world outside keeps spinning at an accelerating pace. While you wait, life moves on. The opportunities you're missing aren't theoretical. They're happening right now with mathematical precision. Studies show that high-quality job postings receive 847 applications within the first 72 hours of posting. After 1 week, that number jumps to over 2,000. Your chances of standing out decrease exponentially with each day you delay. Companies are making hiring decisions faster than ever because they can't afford to wait in competitive markets. By the time you polish your resume for the third time, the position has been filled by someone who applied immediately with a good enough application. The 2025 business environment moves at a speed that makes delay catastrophic. Opportunity windows that used to stay open for months now close in weeks. Career advancement that used to follow predictable timelines now happens in sudden bursts that leave slow movers behind permanently. Market shifts that used to unfold over years now happen in quarters. While you're gathering more information and waiting for the perfect moment, the moment passes and doesn't come back. Industry transformation happens so rapidly now that entire career paths can become obsolete, while people are still debating whether to make a change. Technology roles that didn't exist 5 years ago now represent the highest paying opportunities in the market. Meanwhile, traditional positions that seemed secure are being automated or eliminated at an unprecedented rate. The window for transitioning into emerging fields closes quickly as early adopters establish themselves and create barriers for latecomers. Real estate markets provide a perfect example of how delay costs compound in today's environment. Properties that seemed overpriced 6 months ago now sell for 30% more than their asking price. People who spent months analyzing market conditions and debating the perfect timing watched their purchasing power evaporate while they planned. The houses they could have afforded with their original down payment now require 50% more money. Their hesitation didn't preserve their options, it eliminated them. Entrepreneurship data shows even more dramatic timing effects. Business ideas that could have been launched with minimal competition last year now face saturated markets. The first movers captured the attention, built the audiences, and established the relationships that create sustainable competitive advantages. Late entrants find themselves competing against established players with deeper resources and proven track records. What could have been a ground floor opportunity becomes an uphill battle against entrenched competitors. The networking effects of delay create particularly devastating long-term consequences. Professional relationships that could have been built years ago would have opened doors that are now closed. The person you should have connected with in 2020 is now too successful and busy to respond to cold outreach. The mentor who would have guided your career development has moved on to working with people who approached them when they were more accessible. The business partnership that could have been formed early in both your careers is no longer possible because the other person has advanced beyond your level. Social media comparison drives 90% of people to experience existential regret about their delayed decisions. Meanwhile, those who take action consistently advance faster than those who wait for perfect conditions. Investment opportunities demonstrate the exponential cost of waiting. Markets that seemed too risky last year delivered returns that would have transformed financial futures. Cryptocurrencies that appeared speculative reached valuations that created generational wealth for early adopters. Stock prices that seemed too high became the low point before massive runs. Real estate investments that felt expensive became the foundation for long-term wealth building. Each day of analysis and hesitation represented thousands of dollars in lost potential returns. The acceleration of change means that knowledge and skills become obsolete faster than ever. Professional certifications that took months to obtain lose their value within years. Software platforms that required significant learning investments get replaced by new technologies. Industry expertise that took decades to develop becomes less relevant as markets shift. The window for leveraging existing knowledge keeps shrinking, while the time required to develop new expertise remains constant. Relationship opportunities follow the same pattern of rapidly closing windows. Dating apps show how quickly people move on when others don't respond promptly. Social circles form and solidify around people who show up consistently, while those who wait for ideal conditions find themselves excluded. Professional networks develop around individuals who engage actively, while passive observers remain disconnected. Community involvement requires ongoing participation. Sporadic engagement results in permanent outsider status. Geographic mobility becomes more difficult as housing costs rise and job markets shift. Cities that were affordable destinations for career changes become expensive beyond reach. Regions that offered promising opportunities develop competitive job markets that favor established residents. The cost of relocating increases, while the benefits of moving decrease as markets mature and opportunities become scarce. Educational timing affects lifetime earning potential dramatically. Graduate programs that could have been completed during economic downturns now cost twice as much, while job markets have tightened. Professional development courses that were available online during the pandemic have returned to expensive in-person formats. Learning opportunities that were accessible during periods of industry disruption have become competitive and exclusive as markets stabilized. The compound effects of delay create gaps that become mathematically impossible to close. Someone who started building their network 5 years ago has thousands of connections that took years to develop. Someone who began investing early has returns that compound beyond what late starters can achieve, even with larger initial investments. Someone who established their personal brand years ago has an audience and reputation that cannot be replicated quickly. Technology adoption cycles move so quickly that being 6 months behind in learning new tools can translate to years behind in practical application. Platforms that reward early adopters with better visibility and engagement rates become increasingly difficult to penetrate as they mature. The algorithmic advantages given to established users create insurmountable barriers for newcomers trying to build audiences or generate business. The brutal reality is that life operates on schedules that don't accommodate your comfort timeline. Opportunities emerge based on market conditions, not your readiness level. Other people make decisions based on their goals, not your hesitation. Time moves forward regardless of whether you're prepared to move with it. While you're getting ready to get ready, your window is slamming shut, and the next opportunity is already being seized by someone who decided that imperfect action beats perfect inaction every single time. But what's driving this pattern of delay that's destroying so many lives isn't just procrastination epidemic. It's something far more systematic. Procrastination has exploded into a full-scale epidemic that's silently destroying more lives than any other behavioral pattern in modern society. The numbers are absolutely devastating. What started as 5% of people identifying as chronic procrastinators in the 1970s has skyrocketed to over 20% today. That's not just a trend, that's a generational catastrophe unfolding in real time. We're watching an entire society lose the ability to take action on the things that matter most. The health consequences alone should terrify anyone who recognizes themselves in this pattern. A 2023 study following 3,525 people shows that chronic procrastination doesn't just affect your productivity, it literally damages your physical and mental health. People who consistently delay important tasks show measurably higher levels of depression, anxiety, and chronic stress. But here's what's really frightening. The physical damage compounds over time. Procrastinators develop higher rates of cardiovascular disease, hypertension, disabling pain in the upper extremities, and poor sleep quality. Your body starts breaking down from the constant stress of unfinished business and looming deadlines. The research reveals something even more disturbing about procrastination patterns. Johansson's study shows that procrastination has a 46% heritability rate and links directly to impulsivity disorders. When you repeatedly choose delay over action, you strengthen behavioral patterns that make procrastination the default response to any challenging situation. Each time you postpone something significant, you make it exponentially harder to take action the next time. This isn't just a bad habit. It's a systematic behavioral pattern that gets worse without intervention. Career destruction happens predictably and measurably among chronic procrastinators. The most striking finding shows that people who procrastinate earn an average of $15,000 less per year than their peers. They also represent 57% of the unemployed population, despite being only 20% of the general population. The mathematics are brutal. Chronic procrastination virtually guarantees career underachievement and financial instability throughout your entire working life. College students provide the most alarming preview of what's coming for future generations. Current research shows that between 80% and 95% of college students procrastinate regularly, with approximately 50% engaging in chronic procrastination patterns. These aren't people who occasionally delay minor tasks. These are young adults who have already developed systematic patterns of self-sabotage that will follow them into their professional lives. They're graduating with degrees, but also with deeply ingrained behavioral patterns that will limit their ability to use those degrees effectively. The relationship damage from chronic procrastination extends far beyond individual consequences. Procrastinators consistently strain their relationships with family members, friends, and romantic partners through unreliability and broken commitments. When you repeatedly fail to follow through on promises, show up late to important events, or postpone shared responsibilities, you train the people around you not to depend on you. Research shows that chronic procrastinators report higher levels of loneliness and economic difficulties, not because they lack social opportunities, but because their behavioral patterns gradually push people away. What makes procrastination particularly destructive is how it compounds like debt with interest. Each delayed task creates additional tasks. Each postponed decision creates more complex decisions. Each avoided conversation creates bigger conversations that become harder to initiate. The cognitive load of managing all your delayed actions and unfinished business creates a mental environment where taking any new action feels overwhelming. You become trapped in a cycle where procrastination creates more reasons to procrastinate. The psychological profile of chronic procrastinators reveals a pattern of self-sabotage that extends into every area of life. They don't just delay work projects, they postpone health appointments, avoid difficult but necessary conversations, put off financial planning, and delay relationship decisions. This isn't selective avoidance, it's systematic life avoidance that touches everything meaningful. Research shows that procrastination becomes a generalized response to any situation that requires commitment, effort, or potential discomfort. Sleep quality deteriorates measurably among chronic procrastinators as unfinished tasks create persistent mental activity that prevents restful sleep. Physical activity levels drop because exercise gets postponed indefinitely along with everything else important. Financial difficulties increase because procrastinators delay dealing with money management, bill paying, and financial planning. The health, fitness, and financial consequences create additional stress that makes taking action even more difficult. The hidden costs of procrastination accumulate in ways that most people never calculate until the damage becomes irreversible. Career opportunities missed while preparing to apply. Relationship connections lost while planning to reach out. Investment returns forfeited while researching the perfect strategy. Health problems that developed while postponing preventive care. Educational opportunities that disappeared while considering enrollment. Each delay has a specific measurable cost that compounds over time into massive life limitations. Physical pain manifests in chronic procrastinators at rates that can't be explained by other factors. Research shows higher incidence of disabling pain in the upper extremities, chronic headaches, and muscular tension disorders. The stress of constantly managing unfinished business creates physical tension that accumulates into genuine medical problems. Your body keeps score of every delayed action and postponed decision through measurable physical symptoms. Procrastination creates a predictable pattern where temporary relief from avoiding difficult tasks gets replaced by permanent anxiety about unfinished business. The initial comfort of delay transforms into chronic stress about mounting responsibilities. What starts as avoiding one uncomfortable task becomes a lifestyle of constant low-level panic about everything you're not doing. The psychological burden grows heavier over time until simple daily activities feel overwhelming. The most devastating research finding shows that chronic procrastination becomes increasingly resistant to change over time. The behavioral patterns that support avoidance strengthen with repetition, while the ability to take action weakens from disuse. People who have been chronic procrastinators for more than 5 years show measurable decreases in their ability to initiate new behaviors, even when they desperately want to change. Academic research tracking life outcomes over decades reveals that chronic procrastinators consistently underperform their measured potential across every metric: career achievement, relationship satisfaction, financial stability, and health outcomes. They don't lack intelligence, talent, or opportunities. They lack the ability to translate intentions into actions consistently enough to build meaningful momentum in any direction. Procrastination isn't a time management problem. It's a life destruction system that systematically dismantles your ability to create the outcomes you claim to want, while convincing you that you'll handle it tomorrow. And the psychological toll of this pattern creates something far more devastating than missed opportunities. It creates a specific type of emotional pain that haunts people for decades. The regret research. The numbers that emerge from studying human regret reveal a psychological crisis of unprecedented scale. A 2025 study shows that approximately 90% of adults experience deep or existential regrets that fundamentally shape how they view their lives. 90%. That means 9 out of 10 people you encounter are carrying around profound disappointment about choices they made or failed to make. But here's what makes this statistic truly terrifying. Most of these regrets follow predictable patterns that you can see coming from miles away. The type of regret that destroys people changes as they age in a brutal progression. Young adults primarily regret actions they took, but as people move through their 30s, 40s, and beyond, the regrets shift dramatically toward inaction and missed opportunities. People in their 50s and 60s report that their most haunting regrets center around risks they didn't take, conversations they didn't have, and dreams they didn't pursue. A 2025 study found that the most common regrets are related to connections, such as not reaching out to someone, which often involve relationships that have drifted apart. These aren't random patterns, they're predictable life trajectories that you can chart based on current behavior. The psychological damage from living with major regrets extends far beyond occasional sad moments. Johansson's research reveals that regret shows measurable correlations with mental health deterioration, including depression and anxiety, with specific statistical relationships that demonstrate how regret literally damages your psychological well-being over time. People carrying significant regrets about missed opportunities don't just feel bad about specific decisions, they lose confidence in their ability to make good decisions, period. The regret becomes a lens through which they view every current choice, creating paralysis that generates even more regrets. Relationship satisfaction suffers dramatically among people haunted by significant regrets. When you're constantly thinking about what your life could have been, you can't fully engage with what your life actually is. Partners, friends, and family members report feeling like they're competing with ghost versions of relationships that never happened. The tendency to ruminate on regrets is linked to inflexible expectations and a lack of acceptance, and this rumination creates distance in current relationships that often becomes irreparable. Career regrets follow particularly brutal patterns that compound over decades. People who played it safe in their 20s and 30s report profound regret about not taking career risks when they had fewer obligations and more recovery time. By the time they reach their 40s and 50s, they've accumulated mortgages, family responsibilities, and lifestyle commitments that make dramatic career changes feel impossible. The window for pursuing meaningful work shrinks, while the regret about not pursuing it earlier grows larger and more painful. Financial regrets create particularly long-lasting psychological damage because money mistakes compound over time through lost investment returns, missed opportunities, and accumulated debt. People who avoided financial risks in their younger years watch their more aggressive peers build wealth that seems impossible to catch up to later. The mathematical reality of compound interest means that financial hesitation in your 20s creates regret that grows exponentially with each passing decade. Geographic regrets haunt people who stayed in familiar places while dreaming of adventure or opportunity elsewhere. Research shows that people who never left their hometown or region report some of the most persistent regrets about missed experiences and opportunities. They create elaborate stories about how their lives would have unfolded differently in different places, and these fantasies become more appealing than their actual circumstances. Educational regrets affect people throughout their entire careers as they watch opportunities pass by due to credentials they never pursued. Adults who skipped college or graduate school often find themselves locked out of positions and advancement opportunities for decades. The regret isn't just about the degree, it's about all the doors that remained closed because of one decision to prioritize short-term comfort over long-term possibility. The difference in regret levels between people who took risks and those who played it safe becomes stark over time. Risk-takers report regret about specific failures, but these regrets fade as they gain perspective and learn from experience. Safety seekers report regret about entire categories of experiences they never attempted, and these regrets intensify because there's no way to gain closure or learning from paths never taken. Failed attempts create wisdom, but missed attempts create permanent wondering. Family regrets emerge when people realize they prioritized work or personal comfort over relationships that can't be repaired. Parents who worked too much report devastating regret about missing their children's formative years. Adult children who avoided difficult conversations with aging parents carry guilt that becomes unbearable after those parents die. These regrets have no solutions because the other people involved are no longer available, or the critical moments have passed forever. Health regrets multiply as people age and realize that bodies they neglected in their younger years can't be restored to previous conditions. The regret about not exercising, eating properly, or addressing health issues early creates a compound effect where current limitations remind them daily of past negligence. Unlike other regrets that might fade with time, health regrets often get worse as physical decline continues. People often idealize the alternatives they did not pursue, which can exacerbate feelings of regret. The research reveals that regret intensity correlates directly with the number of opportunities that have become permanently unavailable. When you're young, missed opportunities feel temporary because similar chances will come again. As you age, certain windows close forever. The dream job becomes unrealistic, the adventure becomes impossible, the relationship opportunity disappears, and the regret transforms from temporary disappointment into permanent loss. The most devastating finding shows that regret compounds and intensifies as opportunities become impossible to reclaim. Unlike physical pain that fades with time, emotional pain from missed opportunities often grows stronger as people gain life experience and realize exactly what they gave up. The 20-year career you didn't pursue becomes more painful to think about at 40 than it was at 25 because you now understand what that career could have provided. The brutal truth that every piece of regret research confirms is that the pain of discipline weighs ounces, but the pain of regret weighs tons and never stops getting heavier. But while most people are drowning in regret about their past choices, there's a small group of people who seem immune to this pattern entirely. Success statistics don't lie. These people operate according to completely different principles that create completely different results. While 93% of American workers remain trapped in unfulfilling careers, the 7% who are living their dream jobs didn't get there by accident. They made fundamentally different choices at every critical decision point. The data reveals patterns so clear and predictable that success stops looking like luck and starts looking like a systematic approach that most people simply refuse to follow. Successful people expand their comfort zones deliberately and consistently. Research tracking high achievers over decades shows they actively seek situations that challenge their current capabilities at least 3 times per week. Compare that to average performers who avoid challenging situations and only face them when forced by external circumstances. This isn't a small difference in approach. It's a completely different operating system that creates entirely different life trajectories. The correlation between comfort zone expansion and income is mathematically precise. People who regularly take on challenges that feel slightly beyond their current skill level earn an average of 40% more than those who stick to familiar tasks. This income gap widens every year because comfort zone expansion creates compound benefits. Each challenge builds capability that enables bigger challenges, which create bigger opportunities, which generate bigger rewards. The gap starts small, but becomes exponentially larger over time. Behavioral patterns predict life outcomes with frightening accuracy. High achievers make decisions quickly and change them slowly. Average performers make decisions slowly and change them quickly. High achievers take action before they feel ready and adjust their approach based on results. Average performers wait until they feel ready and then find new reasons to wait longer. These aren't personality differences. They're learned behavioral patterns that anyone can adopt, but most people reject because they feel uncomfortable initially. The relationship between action-taking and life satisfaction shows up consistently across every demographic and age group. People who consistently take action on important decisions report higher levels of happiness, fulfillment, and life satisfaction than those who delay or avoid decisions. The satisfaction doesn't come from always making perfect choices. It comes from making choices rather than being paralyzed by options. Taking imperfect action creates forward momentum that generates more opportunities and better outcomes than perfect planning ever could. Success leaves measurable data trails that reveal exactly what works. High performers spend less time planning and more time executing. They start before they feel ready and figure out details through experience rather than research. They fail faster and more frequently than average performers, but they also recover faster and learn more from each failure. The total time from idea to successful implementation is dramatically shorter for people who embrace imperfect action over perfect preparation. Risk tolerance separates achievers from non-achievers more than talent, education, or resources. Successful people don't take reckless risks. They take calculated risks consistently. They understand that the biggest risk is not taking any risks in a world that changes rapidly. They view failure as data collection rather than personal judgment. This fundamental difference in risk perception allows them to pursue opportunities that others avoid, giving them access to rewards that others never see. The networking behaviors of successful people follow completely different patterns than average performers. High achievers reach out to people before they need anything and maintain relationships consistently over time. They attend events where they don't know anyone and start conversations with people who could help them grow. Average performers only network when they need something and avoid situations where they might feel awkward or rejected. This creates a compound effect where successful people have larger, stronger networks that provide more opportunities throughout their careers. Learning patterns reveal stark differences between high achievers and everyone else. Successful people invest consistently in developing new skills even when their current skills are sufficient for their current role. They read books that challenge their thinking, attend conferences outside their industry, and seek feedback from people who will tell them uncomfortable truths. Average performers stop learning once they feel competent in their current role and avoid information that might challenge their existing beliefs or require them to change their approach. Decision-making speed correlates directly with success across every industry and career level. Research shows that successful people make decisions with 60% of the information they wish they had, while unsuccessful people wait for 90% certainty before acting. The difference in timing gives successful people massive advantages in competitive situations. They secure opportunities while others are still analyzing options. They test ideas while others are still perfecting plans. They build momentum while others are still building confidence. The relationship between comfort zone size and career advancement shows up in promotion data across industries. People who regularly volunteer for challenging assignments, speak up in meetings, and propose new ideas get promoted 2.3 times faster than those who focus on doing their current job perfectly. The willingness to look incompetent temporarily while learning new skills creates long-term competence that others never develop. Companies promote people based on potential for handling bigger challenges, not perfection at current tasks. Financial behaviors separate successful people from everyone else in ways that compound over decades. High achievers invest in assets that appreciate, while average performers spend on liabilities that depreciate. They understand delayed gratification and make short-term sacrifices for long-term benefits. They invest in their own development even when money is tight, because they view education and skill development as the highest return investments available. These financial patterns create wealth gaps that become impossible to close over time. Time management among successful people follows principles that most people find counterintuitive. They say no to good opportunities, so they can say yes to great opportunities. They delegate tasks that others can do adequately, so they can focus on tasks that only they can do exceptionally. They batch similar activities together, rather than switching between different types of work throughout the day. They protect their peak energy hours for their most important work, rather than filling them with meetings and administrative tasks. The success patterns are so consistent and predictable that they create statistical models that forecast life outcomes based on current behavior. People who consistently choose growth over comfort will statistically achieve higher income, career satisfaction, and life fulfillment than those who consistently choose comfort over growth. The data is overwhelming, and the patterns are undeniable. Success isn't mysterious or dependent on luck, connections, or special circumstances. The research reveals exactly what works and what doesn't work with mathematical precision. The behaviors that create success are known, measurable, and reproducible. The only question is whether you're willing to adopt the behavioral patterns that the data shows create the outcomes you want, even when those patterns feel uncomfortable initially. Most people refuse to do what the data shows works, which is exactly why the 7% who do follow these patterns achieve results that seem impossible to everyone else. But there's something the success statistics don't tell you, something that makes all of this urgency about taking action even more critical than the numbers suggest. Time itself is working against you in ways that most people don't understand. Your biological clock is running out faster than you think, and the mathematics of missed opportunities are about to become your permanent reality. Research tracking life transitions across age groups reveals brutal timelines that most people discover too late. Career pivots that feel challenging at 30 become statistically unlikely at 40 and nearly impossible at 50. The window for major life changes doesn't just get smaller with age, it slams shut with mathematical precision that you can calculate based on your current age and circumstances. Neuroplasticity research delivers devastating news about your brain's ability to adapt and learn new skills over time. While your brain maintains some capacity for change throughout life, the speed and efficiency of learning new capabilities drops dramatically after age 35. Complex skill acquisition that takes 6 months in your 20s requires 18 months in your 40s and may never reach the same proficiency level. The brain you're wasting today by avoiding challenges is the same brain you'll desperately need tomorrow when opportunities require capabilities you don't currently possess. Physical energy levels create hard limits on what becomes possible as you age. Endurance, recovery time, and stress tolerance all decline predictably with each decade. The all-nighters you can pull now to launch a business or complete a degree become physically impossible later. The travel required for certain careers becomes exhausting rather than exciting. The physical demands of starting over in new industries or locations become barriers that didn't exist when you were younger. Your body is giving you a finite window of peak performance that narrows every year you don't use it. Financial obligations create prison bars that get thicker over time. Mortgages, family responsibilities, and lifestyle commitments make risk-taking exponentially more difficult as you age. The financial cushion required to make career changes or start businesses grows larger, while your ability to recover from failures shrinks. Economic downturns that might delay your plans by 2 years in your 20s could permanently derail them in your 40s when you have less time to rebuild. Social and family expectations solidify around your current identity in ways that make dramatic changes feel impossible. People stop believing in your ability to transform because you've established patterns of safety and predictability. Family members who depend on your current income level resist changes that might affect their security. Social circles form around your current lifestyle and may not support different versions of who you might become. The identity you've built becomes a cage that gets stronger with each year of consistency. Learning capacity research reveals harsh realities about cognitive flexibility across age groups. Adults over 40 show measurable decreases in their ability to master new languages, adapt to different cultural environments, or develop expertise in unfamiliar fields. The cognitive flexibility that makes major life transitions possible peaks in your 20s and 30s. Each year of delay represents permanently diminished capacity to handle the learning curve that significant changes require. Geographic mobility becomes increasingly difficult as housing markets, job opportunities, and social connections become more complex to navigate. The cost of relocating rises while the energy required to establish new social networks increases. Professional licensing requirements in different states or countries create additional barriers that become more difficult to overcome with age. The adventure of moving to new places transforms into the burden of disrupting established routines and relationships. Health considerations create non-negotiable constraints on what remains possible. Certain careers require physical capabilities that decline with age. Some educational programs have age limitations or practical barriers for older students. Medical conditions that develop over time can eliminate entire categories of life changes. The health you're neglecting now will determine what options remain available when you finally decide to pursue them. Investment windows close based on time horizons that cannot be extended. Retirement planning becomes increasingly desperate as the number of working years decreases. Real estate investments require longer holding periods to generate significant returns. Education investments need time to pay off through career advancement. The compound effects of delayed financial decisions create gaps that become mathematically impossible to close regardless of future income increases. Entrepreneurial success rates correlate inversely with age as energy levels, risk tolerance, and learning speed all decline over time. The stamina required to work 18-hour days while building a business becomes unsustainable. The ability to pivot quickly when initial ideas fail decreases with age. The willingness to sacrifice current security for potential future rewards diminishes as responsibilities accumulate. The network effects that support entrepreneurial success are easier to build when you have more time and energy to invest in relationships. Research tracking major life transitions shows that people who haven't made significant changes by age 45 are statistically unlikely to ever make them. The psychological patterns that create comfort with the status quo become more entrenched each year. The practical barriers to change accumulate faster than the resources needed to overcome them. The gap between current reality and desired changes grows wider while the bridge becomes more expensive to build. The most terrifying aspect of these closing windows is their invisibility until they've already shut. You don't wake up one morning and suddenly realize it's too late. The realization dawns gradually as opportunities stop appearing and options start disappearing. The job postings that specify maximum age requirements, the graduate programs that favor younger candidates, the business partnerships that require energy levels you no longer possess, the geographic moves that your family situation won't accommodate. Time doesn't pause while you gather courage or perfect your plans. Every day you spend in analysis or preparation is a day subtracted from your remaining window of possibility. The dreams you're nurturing today may have expiration dates that are approaching faster than you realize. The life changes you're considering might already be shifting from difficult to impossible while you debate the perfect timing. There's a deadline on your potential that's approaching faster than you think, and once it passes, the conversation shifts from when you'll make changes to why you never did. But before that deadline arrives, you'll be forced to watch something even more painful than missed opportunities. You'll watch other people seize the exact opportunities you let slip away. The comparison trap. Social media becomes your daily reminder of every opportunity you've let slip through your fingers. Every morning you wake up, and within minutes, you're confronted with evidence of how far behind you've fallen. Your college roommate posts about their promotion to senior management while you're still in the same entry-level position you took 3 years ago. Your former coworker shares photos from the European business trip they earned through the startup they launched while you were still researching business ideas. Your high school friend announces they just bought their second investment property while you're still renting and talking about maybe looking into real estate someday. The data on social comparison reveals a mental health crisis that directly correlates with comfort zone living. People who consistently avoid challenges and stick to familiar routines report dramatically higher rates of depression and anxiety compared to those who regularly push their boundaries. But here's what makes this particularly devastating. The depression isn't just about their own circumstances. It's specifically about watching others achieve what they themselves wanted but were too afraid to pursue. Social media has transformed comparison from occasional encounters into constant psychological torture. You can't escape the evidence of what your life could have been because it's documented in real time by people who used to be your equals. LinkedIn shows you the career progressions of former colleagues who took risks you avoided. Instagram displays the adventures and experiences of friends who chose exploration over security. Facebook announces the life milestones of acquaintances who made commitments you were too scared to make. The psychological impact of watching others surpass you hits differently when you realize the gap was completely avoidable. Research shows that comparison-based depression is most severe among people who recognize they had the same opportunities as those who succeeded, but chose safety instead. The pain isn't just about missing out, it's about knowing you actively chose to miss out. Every success story you witness becomes a mirror reflecting your own pattern of avoidance and hesitation. Career stagnation creates particularly brutal comparison scenarios because professional achievements are measurable and public. While you've been perfecting your current skills and staying comfortable in your role, others have been building companies, changing industries, and creating opportunities that didn't exist before. The salary gap widens every year. The responsibility gap becomes a chasm. The impact gap turns into an entirely different league of professional relevance. Your former peers don't just have better jobs, they have better problems. They're dealing with challenges that stretch their capabilities while you're dealing with the same predictable issues you've been handling for years. They're learning new skills because their growth demanded it, while you're using the same skills because your comfort zone required it. They're building networks with interesting people while you're maintaining relationships with people who think exactly like you do. The research reveals that people stuck in comfort zones spend significantly more time consuming social media than those actively pursuing growth. This creates a vicious cycle where the more stagnant your own life becomes, the more time you spend observing others' progress. You become a spectator to success rather than a participant in your own advancement. The comparison becomes your entertainment because your actual life doesn't provide enough stimulation or satisfaction. Financial comparisons cut deepest because money represents freedom and security that compound over time. The investment decisions you avoided, while others took calculated risks, now represent hundreds of thousands of dollars in different net worth. The business opportunities you researched but never pursued became the foundation for others' financial independence. The career moves you considered but rejected created income trajectories that have left you permanently behind in lifetime earning potential. Location-based comparisons reveal how geographic comfort zones limit entire categories of experiences and opportunities. Your friends who moved to different cities or countries didn't just change their address, they changed their entire possibility landscape. They gained access to industries, cultures, and opportunities that don't exist in your familiar environment. Their expanded worldview creates expanded life options, while your familiar surroundings create familiar limitations. The education gap becomes more painful as you watch others apply knowledge and credentials that you considered pursuing but never committed to obtaining. Graduate degrees that seemed like too much work or too much risk open doors that remain closed to you. Professional certifications that felt unnecessary when you were comfortable become essential requirements for positions you now want but can't access. Physical fitness and health comparisons become more devastating with age as the consequences of avoiding discomfort compound visibly. People who embrace challenging workouts and disciplined nutrition while you chose comfort food and sedentary habits now have energy, health, and physical capability that represent years of choices you cannot retroactively change. The gap in physical condition reflects the gap in mental discipline that shows up in every area of life. The most psychologically damaging aspect of comparison is realizing that you've become the cautionary tale that motivates others to take action. Your story of comfort zone living and missed opportunities becomes the example that ambitious people use to remind themselves why they must push through fear and discomfort. You've transformed from someone who might achieve great things into someone who represents what happens when you don't try. Professional networking events become exercises in humiliation as you encounter people who started at your level but now operate in completely different leagues of success and influence. The conversations reveal how far you've fallen behind, not just in achievement, but in thinking, ambition, and capability. You can't even contribute meaningfully to discussions about challenges and opportunities that exist beyond your limited experience. The brutal mathematics of comparison show that gaps between you and others who took action only widen with time. The head start they gained by acting while you hesitated becomes an insurmountable advantage that grows larger every year. The compound benefits of their courage create compound costs for your caution that cannot be recovered through later action. Your comfort zone didn't protect you from pain. It guaranteed you a front-row seat to watch others live the life you were too scared to pursue. But here's what nobody tells you about that gnawing feeling in your stomach when you see others succeeding where you failed to even try. That discomfort you feel isn't weakness or inadequacy. It's actually the most reliable signal you have for identifying exactly what you need to do next. Fear isn't your enemy. It's your GPS pointing directly toward everything that could transform your life. While most people run from fear, research on high achievers reveals they use fear as a compass that guides them toward their most important decisions. When something scares you, that's not a warning to avoid it. That's your internal navigation system telling you that this direction leads to growth, meaning, and the life you actually want to live. The neuroscience behind fear reveals why your brain tries to protect you from exactly the experiences you need most. Your amygdala evolved to keep you alive in physical danger, but it can't distinguish between a saber-toothed tiger and a job interview. The same alarm system that once saved your ancestors from predators now saves you from opportunities that could change everything. Your brain interprets career risks, relationship conversations, and creative pursuits as life-threatening dangers because they involve uncertainty and potential rejection. But here's what happens when you flip the script and start moving toward your fears instead of away from them. Each time you do something that scares you, your brain rewires itself to handle bigger challenges. Confronting fears literally expands your neural pathways related to confidence, decision-making, and stress tolerance. You don't just overcome the specific fear you faced, you build general fearlessness that applies to every future challenge. Your capacity for handling discomfort grows exponentially with each scary thing you actually do. Research on post-traumatic growth reveals something powerful about human resilience. People who face their fears and push through difficult experiences don't just return to their previous baseline, they develop capabilities and confidence that exceed their original levels. The temporary stress of confronting fear creates permanent expansion of your comfort zone. You become literally more capable of handling whatever life throws at you because you've proven to yourself that you can survive and thrive through discomfort. Compare this to what happens when you consistently avoid fear. Every time you choose safety over growth, your comfort zone shrinks. Your tolerance for uncertainty decreases. Your confidence in your ability to handle challenges diminishes. You train yourself to believe that you're fragile and incapable of dealing with difficulty. The fear doesn't go away when you avoid it. It grows stronger and more controlling. What started as reasonable caution becomes paralyzing anxiety that prevents you from taking any meaningful action. The difference between successful people and everyone else isn't that successful people feel less fear. They feel the same fear, but they've learned to use it as fuel instead of letting it be a brake. They understand that fear signals opportunity. When they feel scared about a potential decision, they lean into that feeling because they know it means they're considering something that could significantly improve their life. They've trained themselves to get excited about fear because they associate it with growth and progress. The research on regret versus action-based fear delivers a crucial insight. The fear you feel before taking action is temporary and manageable. The fear of regret that comes from not taking action is permanent and grows stronger over time. The discomfort of doing something scary lasts hours or days. The discomfort of wondering what would have happened if you had been brave enough to try lasts years or decades. The mathematics are clear. Temporary fear is always preferable to permanent regret. Physical responses to fear follow predictable patterns that you can learn to interpret differently. When your heart rate increases, your palms sweat, and your stomach churns, your body is preparing you for peak performance. Athletes and performers experience these same sensations before competition, and they've learned to interpret them as readiness signals rather than danger warnings. Your body is getting ready to perform at its highest level. The question is whether you'll give it the chance or shut down the opportunity through avoidance. The career implications of fear-based decision-making show up in income statistics and advancement rates across industries. People who consistently choose comfort over challenge plateau early in their careers and stay there. People who regularly do things that scare them, speak up in meetings, volunteer for difficult projects, change companies or industries, advance faster, and earn more throughout their working lives. The correlation between fear confrontation and career success is so strong that you can predict someone's professional trajectory based on their relationship with fear. Social fears create particularly limiting patterns because they prevent the relationship building that opens most significant opportunities. Fear of rejection keeps people from networking, asking for help, or proposing collaborations that could transform their careers. Fear of judgment prevents them from sharing ideas that could solve important problems. Fear of conflict stops them from having conversations that could improve their relationships. The social connections that create the best opportunities in life require you to risk social discomfort. Creative fears destroy potential that can never be recovered. The book that stays unwritten, the business that never launches, the art that never gets created. These aren't just missed opportunities, they're lost contributions to the world. Creative work requires you to risk criticism, failure, and misunderstanding. People who avoid these risks preserve their ego but sacrifice their potential impact. They protect themselves from judgment while denying themselves and others the value they could have created. Financial fears keep people trapped in scarcity, thinking that perpetuates actual scarcity. Fear of losing money prevents people from making investments that could build wealth. Fear of financial failure stops them from starting businesses or changing careers that could dramatically increase their income. The safest financial strategy, keeping money in savings accounts and staying in comfortable jobs, is actually the riskiest long-term approach because it guarantees that inflation and missed opportunities will erode your financial position over time. The compound effects of fear confrontation create momentum that makes each subsequent scary decision easier to make. Once you prove to yourself that you can survive rejection, failure, and discomfort, those outcomes lose their power to control your behavior. You start making decisions based on potential upside rather than potential downside. You begin taking action based on what you could gain rather than what you might lose. This shift in perspective transforms your entire relationship with opportunity and risk. The most empowering realization about fear is that it's temporary, while the benefits of confronting it are permanent. The nervousness you feel before a difficult conversation fades within minutes after you start talking. The anxiety about starting a new job disappears within weeks of beginning. The stress of learning new skills reduces as your competence increases. But the confidence, relationships, and capabilities you gain from pushing through those temporary fears last for years or decades. Everything you want exists on the other side of the fear you're currently avoiding. The career you dream about requires you to risk failure and rejection. The relationship you want demands vulnerability and emotional risk. The creative work you're meant to do requires you to risk criticism and misunderstanding. The life you actually want is waiting for you to be brave enough to feel scared and do it anyway. And that choice, to face your fear or let it control you, that choice is about to become unavoidable. Your moment of truth. This is the moment when everything changes or everything stays exactly the same. Right now, in this exact moment, you're standing at a crossroads that will define the rest of your life. The research shows that within the next few seconds, your brain will make a decision that echoes through every single day you have left. You can choose action or you can choose delay, but you cannot choose to avoid choosing. Your indecision is a decision, and it's the decision that leads to the life you're already living, but don't want to keep living. The mathematics of this moment are brutal and precise. If you take action today on the most important change you've been avoiding, statistical models predict you'll be significantly more likely to achieve your primary life goal within 5 years. If you delay for another month, that likelihood drops dramatically. If you wait 6 months, it plummets further. If you postpone for a full year, you have less than a 3% chance of ever following through. These aren't motivational statistics. They're actuarial calculations based on tracking millions of people who faced the same decision you're facing right now. The person you become over the next 5 years depends entirely on what you do in the next 5 minutes. You will either be someone who acts when they know they should act, or someone who finds reasons to wait when they know they should move. These aren't just different choices, they're different identities that create completely different life trajectories. The action taker experiences compound benefits that multiply over time. The delay taker experiences compound costs that multiply even faster. Let's map out exactly what happens when you choose action today. Within 30 days, you've made measurable progress on the thing you've been avoiding. Your confidence increases because you've proven to yourself that you can follow through. Your brain starts looking for more opportunities to grow because growth feels good. Other people notice your momentum and start responding to you differently. Opportunities that were invisible before become visible because you're operating from a different energy level. By month 6 in the action scenario, you've overcome the initial learning curve and developed competence in your new direction. The fear that once paralyzed you now feels manageable because you've survived the discomfort and discovered it wasn't as terrible as your imagination predicted. Your network has expanded because taking action puts you in contact with other action takers. Your situation has improved because action creates value and value creates results. Year 2 of the action path shows compound effects that become impossible to ignore. Skills you developed in year 1 become expertise that opens doors you didn't know existed. Relationships you built through taking action become partnerships that accelerate your progress. Confidence you gained from surviving initial challenges becomes unshakable belief in your ability to handle whatever comes next. The momentum you created through consistent action becomes unstoppable force that carries you toward outcomes that once seemed impossible. By year 5 of choosing action today, you've become someone completely different from who you are right now. You've proven to yourself repeatedly that you can handle fear, uncertainty, and challenges. You've built capabilities that make you valuable in ways you can't currently imagine. You've created a life that reflects your actual values rather than your fears. You wake up excited about your days instead of dreading them. You've become the person you always knew you could be if you just had the courage to start. Now contrast that with the delay path. Month 1 passes, and you're still researching, planning, and preparing. You tell yourself you're being responsible by waiting, but deep down you know you're being scared. The opportunity you could have seized is still there, but it's getting smaller. Other people are taking action while you're still thinking about taking action. The gap between you and those who chose courage starts widening. 6 months into the delay scenario, you're frustrated with yourself for not starting sooner, but you're also more entrenched in your current situation. The momentum of inaction has created psychological momentum that makes action feel even more difficult. You've established patterns of avoidance that now feel normal. The thing you were going to do 6 months ago now feels even more overwhelming because you've spent 6 months proving to yourself that you don't take action on important things. Year 2 of choosing delay shows how inaction compounds into bigger problems. The opportunity you missed has been taken by someone else. Your confidence has decreased because you've repeatedly proven to yourself that you don't follow through on commitments to yourself. Your situation has either stagnated or declined because you haven't created new value. Your relationships reflect your energy of settling and playing it safe. You're surrounded by people who also avoid challenges because like attracts like. By year 5 of choosing delay, you've become someone you don't recognize and don't respect. You've spent 5 years proving that you're not someone who takes action when action is required. You've trained yourself to believe that you're not capable of handling challenges or creating change. You've created a life that feels safe but empty. You've become the cautionary tale that other people use to motivate themselves to take action. The regret research confirms what you already know in your gut. People who consistently choose inaction report that their regrets about things they didn't do are twice as prevalent as regrets about things they did. As you get older, what really sticks with you are the regrets about what you didn't do. The temporary discomfort of taking action today becomes the permanent satisfaction of knowing you were brave when it mattered. The temporary comfort of avoiding action today becomes the permanent pain of wondering what could have been. This moment is already passing. Every second you spend thinking about whether to take action is a second you're not taking action. Every minute you spend weighing pros and cons is a minute you're choosing the status quo by default. Every hour you spend preparing to get ready is an hour you're not actually getting ready. The decision is being made right now whether you consciously choose it or not. 5 years from today, you'll either be proud that you acted when action was required, or devastated that you chose comfort when courage was needed. You'll either be grateful that you trusted yourself enough to take the leap, or angry that you wasted years of your life being scared of outcomes that were temporary while accepting outcomes that were permanent. The version of you that exists 5 years from now is determined by what you do right now. The clock is ticking. The window is closing. The moment is here. The choice is yours. But the time for choosing is almost over. Every excuse you've ever made has led you to this exact moment, reading these words instead of living the life you actually want. The average person wastes over 55 days each year procrastinating while their dreams die from neglect. 5 years will pass whether you act or hide. 5 years from now, you'll either thank yourself for being brave enough to start or hate yourself for being too scared to try. 90% of adults carry devastating life regrets, and you're heading straight toward joining them unless you move right now. Your excuses expire today. Your comfort zone ends now. Choose action or choose regret, but choose.